Good morning, everyone. We welcome you to the regular meeting of the Board of Trustees for the Utah Transit Authority. Today is Wednesday, March the 24th of 2021, and I'm Carlton Christensen, Chair of the Board of Trustees, joined by my colleagues Beth Holbrook and Jeff Acerson. And just a couple notes here. If you'd like to make a public comment and do so live, there's a way to register through our WebEx link, and we certainly would invite you to do so. In order to, since this meeting is an all remote electronic meeting, we have a statement of determination that I'll ask Jenna Osler to read for us. Jenna?
Thank you, Chair. This is the electronic board meeting determination. Consistent with the Utah Open and Public Meetings Act, as the Chair of the Board of Trustees of the Utah Transit Authority, I hereby make the following written determinations in support of my decision to hold electronic meetings of the UTA Board without a physical anchor location. Due to the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic, conducting board and board committee meetings with an anchor location presents a substantial risk to health and safety of those who may be present at the anchor location. Federal, state, and local health authorities continue to encourage institutions and individuals to limit in-person interactions. This written determination takes effect on March 10th, 2021, and is effective until midnight on April 8th, 2021, and may be reissued by future written determinations as deemed appropriate. Dated this 4th day of March, 2021. Signed, Carlton Christensen.
Thanks, Jenna. Also would note that for those of you who are watching, this is being streamed live on YouTube. Today, as a special honor, we're recognizing one of our colleagues who has passed away, Doug Oldham, and it's with heavy heart that we do this, but we'd like to share some memories and also express some support for his family. With that, I invite Grace Torres, who's an operations supervisor and worked directly with Doug, to share a few memories and thoughts about Doug. Good morning, Grace, and welcome.
There
you go.
Thank you for giving the Solid Business Unit Bus Operations the opportunity to share with you the insights of our dear friend, Doug Oldham. Badge number 6950. Doug started his career at UTA in January 6, 2012 as a part-time employee. Doug was very proud to be part of the UTA family. He once told me he loved to drive and he loved the people he worked with. He would come by the scheduling office just to say hi and to share some short stories with us on a regular basis. And most important, to see if we were still going to offer the part-time Tooele work. UTA started hiring part-timers to drive about 20 years ago, and they have been a great asset to our company. Although they may not be here full-time, the impact that they leave is unmeasurable, and I am proud to have known Doug. Doug always came to work with a smile on his face. He had an excellent work ethic and an excellent work record. His co-workers described Doug as a nice guy, always smiling, so friendly, never complained, and always willing to help everyone. Doug was very measured and an insightful person. One operator even commented a life bonus. We couldn't ask for a better friend or co-worker. I feel that the operators, with their kind words, they knew Doug. He was an awesome driver and an awesome person. Doug was a family man. He loved spending time with his family and his dear lost friend, Duchess, his chocolate lab. He loved his nieces and nephews and loved spending time and activities with them and their children, attending sports events and supporting their birthdays, blessings, and baptisms. Doug loved the outdoors, golfing, camping, fishing, and hunting. He also loved riding his motorcycle. Doug also had a mean arm. He always competed in his family reunions horseshoe tournaments, and frequently won. I would like to thank Doug's family for sharing Doug with us these past 9 years and his dedication for us. Our thoughts go out to you, the family. Just know that Doug will be missed, but never forgotten. Thank you for this opportunity to share with you.
Grace, thank you. And certainly we echo those thoughts and our condolences to the family. In honor of Doug, I just would like to take a brief moment of silence before we move on in our meeting. Thank you. And thank you, Grace. And again, our condolences to Doug's family.
Thank you.
We'll move forward in our meeting, and first up is our Safety First Minute. And with that, we welcome Sheldon Shaw. Good morning, Sheldon.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Good morning, trustees. This morning, I wanted to highlight a safety campaign that was kicked off by UDOT, and they're trying to highlight the unfortunate truth that we had 276 traffic-related deaths last year on Utah roadways. That was an 11% increase over 2019, and it's really unfortunate because we had 13% less traffic in Utah due to COVID last year. And so, unfortunately, also 2021 has started off worse than 2020. And so their campaign is asking each of us to improve our behaviors on the roadway. We should all be wearing a seatbelt. Let's make sure we're obeying speed limits, that we're not operating impaired, and especially we're not distracted as we're operating vehicles on the roadways. With that, thanks for your opportunity, Chair.
Thanks, Sheldon. It is very timely. We appreciate your message. We'll go next to public comment. Jana, do we have anybody from the public that would like to make comment on today's agenda?
We have not had anyone from the public join us, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Certainly, if there are those who are watching want to follow up with comment, we welcome that through our website. There's some email and some phone numbers and other options for you to make comment. We certainly welcome that public comment. As we go forward, we'll go next to our consent agenda, which includes approval of minutes from our last board meeting, as well as some updates to UTA policies. With that, I would entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'd make a motion that we approve the consent agenda as outlined.
I second that motion.
I have a motion from Beth, seconded by Jeff, to approve the consent agenda. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Thank you. And thanks for the work on those policies. It's always a challenge to get those updated. With that, we'll go to our agency report and welcome our Executive Director, Carolyn Gunott. Good morning, Carolyn. How are you?
Good morning, Chair. I'm doing well. Just a few items today. The first thing I just want to a reminder that we are excited about having the Ogden Weber State University Bus Rapid Transit groundbreaking ceremony on April 13th. That's a Tuesday, next Tuesday at 2 p.m. It will be held at the Weber State University Browning Center front entrance. So we're just going to have an array of federal and state and local speakers, and then followed by the groundbreaking ceremony. So if the public is wanting to join, they can sign up on a link. But I do want to thank the team and everything for pulling this together, and we're very excited about having this happen. The next item I want to cover is the COVID-19 Recovery Task Force. This was a recovery task force that we initiated almost a year ago, right around the beginning of April. And so we're about to transition out of this. We didn't know how long it would last, the task force. And I do remember thinking about some of the early beginnings, thinking this would be a few months, maybe through to the fall, but it has been about a year. I'm going to have Lauren Simpson just give an update about the task force as we start to sunset it. and just what we've accomplished and where we're going next. So I'm going to turn it over to Lauren Simpson, and I do really want to thank his leadership in facilitating and managing this and working very closely with me and his team. So Lauren, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Well, good morning. 1 year ago, our world changed. We can go to the next slide. It's hard to believe how much has happened in just 12 months. When COVID-19 began to be a reality for our community, Carolyn quickly organized a task force to assist UTA in navigating its way forward as COVID became a pandemic. And it began to affect nearly everything we do. As you know, it impacted ridership, revenue, and of course, the health and safety of our employees and customers. So now 1 year later, the task force has largely accomplished and completed its purpose, and UTA, as Carolyn mentioned, will begin transitioning to the next phases of recovery, including a real heightened focus on ridership growth as our community begins to emerge from the high and moderate risk levels that it's been in to lower risk levels. So today I'd like to just briefly review the purposes and actions taken by the task force and UTA and the next steps in recovery. And since this will likely be the last update from this task force, this committee, I'd like to mention each of the members of that task force by name. There was Nicole Bordeaux, Alicia Garrett, Laura Hansen, G.J. Labonte, Andrea Packer, Beth Waverick, and Mary Wong. These individuals represent the great people at UTA, the dedicated, skilled, and committed to solve problems, especially during such a difficult time. It was a privilege for me personally to have had the opportunity to work with such fine people, and honestly, UTA is lucky to have them be part of our family. And I also have to say that in addition to the members of the task team, every leader, every department and employee at UTA has worked diligently in their own capacity and in unique COVID-related projects to keep us all safe. And the task force was one piece of a great team of people. Next slide. So from the outset, Carolyn early on established three primary goals for us as a task force and as an organization as we dealt with the pandemic. The first was, of course, to recover ridership, and we're still focused on that, and that will be a heavy focus in this next phase that we'll talk about in just a minute. Another goal was to ensure the short and long-term financial sustainability of UTA so we could continue to provide the services that were needed in the community. And finally, to maintain customer confidence in UTA, that we'd be here, that we'd be consistent, they could rely on us, and that it would be safe. COVID's posed, as you know, significant challenges and threats, and so our primary focus early on was a bit like an emergency response team, establishing safety protocols and identifying strategies to ensure the short and long-term well-being of UTA, its employees, and its customers. Next. Early on, we identified the transit-related components of the governor's response plan. You've seen this before. We don't need to go through this, but just as a reminder, as we took a look at this carefully to make sure that our plan and our response was aligned with the state's plan and our community needs. Next slide. Then we developed a phased strategy for UTA to first ensure the safety of our employees and our customers, and then secondly, to identify measures to maintain financial sustainability and customer confidence. Again, I won't go into detail about this plan because you've seen it before, you're familiar with it. But I just show it here just as a reminder, and I think it's remarkable to review this plan today with the benefit of 2020 hindsight and see that it still works. It's been followed, and its primary objectives for UTA have been accomplished for the first year of our response. Now we're moving into the later phases of recovery where we start to emerge and focus on growth as we go forward. Next slide. I want to mention just a few highlights of some things that UTA has accomplished and that the task force was able to assist with, and some of the impact of those efforts. Again, you've heard many of these things, but I think as we transition, it's important to just note a few of these. First of all, with ridership, it certainly has been impacted by COVID. And however, the fluctuating losses in the early phases of COVID have seemed to stabilize, and we are now prepared to build ridership again. In fact, we're seeing some uptick of ridership here recently that I'm sure we'll talk about more as month-end ridership numbers come in. We've established extensive cleaning and disinfecting protocols that were established then and continue today, and many, if not most of these, will continue well into the future. We paid careful attention on revenue and service levels to ensure that we would be able to continue to operate our critical services, both during the pandemic and that we could sustain that service in the future. So we feel like we're in a really good place now to begin growth and moving forward. And finally, when it comes to safety, gratefully, the safety practices that were implemented by so many at UTA seem to help. And they've resulted in a positive infection rate for our employees that were no greater than the rates of our community that we serve, despite the fact that so many of our employees still needed to come to work every day to move the buses and trains and help the community get where they needed to go. Throughout the pandemic, our absenteeism rate at UTA generally remained within our historical pre-COVID norms. That's remarkable to me. Many kudos to all the dedicated employees who show up every day and for those who help develop and implement these important safety protocols. Finally, before we move forward, I'd like to read a comment to you that we received from one of our customers last year. It was in the summertime in the midst of this really challenging time. And to me, it reflects the reason for all of these efforts by so many at UTA. These are their words. They sent this via email, and I want to share them with you if I can. They said, in the middle of all of this uncertainty, there's the consistent, outstanding certainty of UTA, rolling along. Dedicated employees doing a wonderful job during trying circumstances. Without UTA, numerous individuals would be without transportation. So many people would be in trouble. Throughout all of this chaos, UTA keeps moving along, providing an essential service to Salt Lake, Ogden, and Provo. So thanks to you for the great service, UTA. I don't know if you know how far those kind of comments go throughout the organization, but I wanted to share it because it represents that the things that we have done as an agency have mattered and have been noticed. And so I just wanted to share that. Next slide. Finally, what's next? With the initial recovery phases complete, having financial sustainability and safety protocols in place, we now transition to a ridership recovery team under the direction of Carolyn and led by Andrea Packer. We're excited about that as we start to emerge from the COVID situation that we've been and establish a new normal. We're thankful to Carolyn for the opportunity to have been part of this UTA effort, this important effort over the past year, and we look forward to a hopeful and bright future for UTA. So thank you very much.
And I just want to, I guess we go the next slide. Do we have one last slide? Yes. And so that is where we're transitioning to. I do want to again thank Lauren for his real leadership and outstanding leadership and being able to move forward. We jumped on things. We're very quickly able to manage, I think, a situation that no transit agency or anywhere else anywhere in the country expected or around the world. We've been able to keep our employees very safe. You know, it's not perfect because every day we're learning new things, and as well as the whole medical industry has as well. So I just want to thank Lauren. I do want Lauren just to mention a little bit also, because we did stand up our EOC during this time and to date still have weekly meetings. So Lauren, do you want to talk a little bit about that? Who really, Tom McMahon has been running that, or at least planning that and facilitating that as well. So Lauren, do you want to just talk about that as well? I don't want to forget about sort of that team that gets on every week, and there's a lot of people involved in that as well.
You bet. Kudos to Tom McMahon. He's led a weekly, and early on it was daily, COVID emergency response meeting in the mornings to assess what had happened the day before, and then we could discuss together, adjust our plan going forward. As things became more established and more settled, we shifted that to weekly, and that's been really helpful to have all of the key players in the organization get together regularly, get the latest information, make adjustments operationally in terms of communication, and that's been a great effort, and that continues and will continue.
Carolyn, I want to express thanks to you for your leadership. And I remember, especially in those early months, a lot of the protocols we were coming up with were well ahead of the industry standards, and you know, they were weeks, if not a month, behind us, and it really was a testament to Lauren and others on the committee for thinking through, you know, the unknown, really. And as you look back and reflect back, and while no decisions are ever 100% perfect, they were pretty darn close, and really helped us be in a good place moving forward. Hopefully folks are responsible over the next few months, and we can continue this recovery. But I just want to say thank you for the efforts that have been made. Beth, looks like you have a comment.
Oh, thank you. Carolyn and Lauren, I wanted to just commend you both on the responses that you had, and for the teams that got involved, and for the I just wanted to comment specifically on some of the ingenuity that resulted from this, which I believe that there were the operator shields that were first manufactured within our own maintenance areas, and these groups coming together to try to solve what was and still kind of is an unknown situation, and really everyone just deserves a tremendous amount of credit. And I just wanted to thank you personally, because this it was outstanding, everything that occurred. So thank you.
Thanks. I also want to thank, just basic little things we didn't think about. For example, us quickly going to a telecommuting where possible for those workers who can, just IT being up and being able to have the information out very quickly, HR being able to talk about our pandemic leave policy and putting that out very quickly, labor who's, worked with us on a lot of these activities. I mean, there were some agencies who didn't have enough VPN licenses to be able to work from home, and they had to get those up. And we had I'll give a lot of credit to Dan Harmuth that he had some, he had done some disaster recovery plans as well that actually helped support this effort that we had. So we were able to not really miss a beat in our ability to do our day-to-day work as well. So I just want to thank, there's many across the agency for little things like that we were able to continue to work and put out the service. We really did not really skip a beat on anything. And when it came to like still being out there for our customers and being able to get it, we might have reduced service a little bit, but we were out there the whole time talking to them. Well, I have to say light rail went down a little bit, but that was the earthquake and the windstorm. So
those are understandable.
Carlton, if I could just take a second.
Yeah, please, Jeff.
I think it's wonderful that as everything else was being challenged or questioned, UTA continued to provide the service. And I think that is, for people that need to be able to be mobile and get to places, to be able to count on UTA to be there for them in a time of a great challenge and difficulty. I want to applaud all of our employees and just express gratitude to them that it probably at times was a little challenging to come to work and to provide that service, knowing the challenges that existed and the unknowns, and just thank you. And I think the community thanks us as well. So thank you, Carolyn, and your team and everyone.
You're welcome. I couldn't have done this. This is I came here because the workforce is wonderful, and this just reaffirmed it, tenfold. How great the employees are here at UTA.
Totally agree. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to move to the next item, which is I'm going to have Hal Johnson talk a little bit about the S line and how we have moved towards 100% renewable energy for this line. So Hal, I'm going to turn it over to you, Hal Johnson, the project manager, project development manager. Go ahead.
Good morning, everybody. You can do the next slide. So we've had presented a couple times before to the board on the a plan we put together with Rocky Mountain Power on our overall partnership agreement. And so this is one of the implementation elements of the partnership agreement. So you can do the next slide, please. So in the partnership agreement, we focus on energy efficiency, electrical infrastructure, electric vehicles, and grid resilience. And we've worked with Rocky Mountain Power to develop a number of strategies in this area, in these areas. You can do the next slide. And so one of the things that we also noted is increasing our use of renewable energy, and Rocky Mountain Power has a number of different programs that we can take advantage of. And then we've also been working with them on a number of grid and collaborative research projects. We have the biggest mobile sources of electric usage with our rail vehicles and our battery buses. So it's a big impact on the grid, as well as a lot of opportunities to kind of improve the overall efficiency of the grid with our mobile sources. You can do the next slide. So if you're familiar with the Sugar House streetcar line, it's a couple-mile streetcar line connecting into the heart of Sugar House. That project has 2 traction power substations. So the traction power substations are the unit that's connected to the grid, and they change AC energy to DC energy for use for the vehicles. And I just have a couple of pictures. If you haven't been out to the S line recently, there's a lot of new development that's sprung up around the corridor. So I just wanted to include a couple pictures of that here in the slide deck. You can do the next slide. So I think Dan Locke might be on as well, but Dan really championed this effort to switch the S line over to renewables. So we've been able to purchase renewable energy credits from Rocky Mountain Power, and then reallocate some credits we already had onto the S line. And so right now the traction power substations are running on 100% renewable energy, and you can see there's been a savings with the renewable energy. It saves UTA about $23,000 a year with the shift to renewable energy. And then you can see down below there's significant greenhouse gas savings from that, in addition to saving UTA a little bit of money every year. So I was going to pause. If there's any questions on this one, Dan can help answer any questions on this one.
So how, and I know just from my old days at Salt Lake City that they have a fairly large initiative, and of course South Salt Lake would be included toward renewable energy and being net zero where possible. I just wondered whether or not we've had any discussions with them about this effort and initiative. Are they sort of aware of this this change and this modification?
That's a great question. We were presenting to you first, and then we wanted to do some outreach with both Rocky Mountain Power and Salt Lake City to kind of note this change that we've made, and thought it's also a good opportunity to talk about the legislative funds that were awarded for the S line as well. So there's we thought this was good timing to present this to you guys first.
No, I welcome that. The other question I sort of had is, do we know the sources of their renewable energies? I mean, do you have a sense of where that's coming from, or is it sort of a huge pot of multiple sources?
Yeah, Rocky Mountain Power has both wind renewable energy sources, primarily in Wyoming, and then they have solar farms that have been built in Utah, and primarily southern Utah. that provide much of the renewable energy. And going forward, we'd like to work with Rocky Mountain Power to try to get more of these renewable energy blocks and purchase. There's some overall benefits and savings to UTA.
Great. It's exciting. Thank you.
And we can do the last slide here really quick. So just in conclusion, this is one of the elements that we've been working on to implement the partnership agreement we signed with Rocky Mountain Power. And then I know a couple of the trustees had signed on to the Utah Climate and Clean Air Compact. So we see this as an element to implement that partnership. And so we're excited about this kind of first step in this process with Rocky Mountain Power. And I wanted to recognize Dan Locke for all his great work to kind of put this deal together for us. So with that, if there's any happy to answer any questions.
Let me see if either of the trustees have any questions.
Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Yeah, please.
Hal, thank you so much for this and for all of your work that you have done in the energy generation sector. I think that it has really served the agency well. I just this is more of an anecdotal comment. Last night I presented to Ogden City about the 5-year plan, and their discussion, of course, went to the BRT, which, as we know, is going to have the groundbreaking next month to start that project. And one of the elements to this is that there will be 11 electric buses. And the discussion actually asked about the how does that look for our own entire system? How do we look at that? Where do these types of what types of decisions go into how we decide about the clean air, compact air quality in general, and what does that look like? And I think that this is such a great element to incorporate within our system, to look at these things and to look at the sustainability models that can be established through this project. So I just wanted to thank you for all of your efforts. I know you have been to DC even to talk about these types of projects. And so I think this is an excellent addition. Thanks.
Thank you, Beth.
Well, I would just throw out there that if there's a corridor probably in the Utah hemisphere, if you will, that could want to go toward a more net neutral or renewable thing, it's probably this corridor. And I think as we have conversations with both South Salt Lake and Salt Lake, maybe there's a joint effort, as they enlist others to join this cause. That would be a nice example of a neighborhood that was more sustainable, if you will. And I think it would be a great conversation to have as we feel like we're ready to have a conversation with them.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, Carl. And if you look at that, kind of the development in that S-line corridor with all the transit-oriented development that's occurring, and there's so much, more walking and biking that occurs as people shift to that transit-oriented development pattern. And so it's, saving a lot of vehicle miles traveled and environmental impacts with people making that shift. And then with this, able to kind of put a little frosting on the cake, if you will, with this shift to renewable energy.
Yeah, great. Well, thank you. Any other questions for Hal, though? Okay. Seeing none. Carolyn, do you have anything else that you want to?
That concludes my agency report.
Okay, great report. Thank you for your efforts there. And wonderful update. We'll go to the next item, which is a resolution designating the trustees and administrator of the authority's 457 Deferred Compensation Plan. And with that, we welcome Kim Muhleberry, our Chief People Officer. Kim, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you, Chair and trustees. I'm just here to present a resolution redesignating the trustee and the administrator of our 457 Deferred Compensation Plan. And really what this does is highlight that we are rescinding a previous resolution, and it highlights that we have a difference between our deferred benefit pension plan and our 457 deferred compensation plan. And because those are two separate and distinct plans, we've determined that it's better to have separate bodies acting as the trustee and the administrator of those plans. So this resolution that we're presenting today removes the pension committee as the trustee of the 457 plan and replaces that with this board of trustees. And then it sets the executive director as the administrator of the plan, or the executive director or her designee as the administrator of the plan. And we feel that this is probably best practice moving forward. So are there any questions?
Kim, I know the answer to this, but just really more for the public's understanding, really the actual investments are the determinant of the employee themselves, right? I mean, we maybe determine who provides the service or the opportunity for the employee, but really the employee makes their own investment decisions.
Yes, that is correct. The most that we do as the employer, as you mentioned, is determine the vendor, and then sometimes determine whether we will participate in some of the funds that the vendor has offered.
Okay, that's great.
So.
Thank you. Any questions for Kim or other comments? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion on this resolution.
Chair Christensen, I would go ahead and make the motion to approve R 2021-03-01, resolution designating the trustee and administrator of the authority's 457 deferred compensation plan.
Second.
I have a motion from Jeff, seconded by Beth. I'll ask for a roll call.
Trustee Acerson?
Aye.
Trustee Holbrook?
Aye.
Chair Christensen?
Aye.
The vote is unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Kim.
Thank you.
Excuse me. We'll move to item 7, which is contracts, disbursements, and grant. And the first one up is a contract for the front runner paint booth construction with Paulson Construction, as well as a technical budget adjustment that would accommodate this change. We welcome Mary DiLoretto and Andrea Paulos to give us an update on this. Good morning, Mary.
Good morning, trustees. Yes, this is for a construction contract for Paulson Engineering to construct the front runner paint booth, and it also includes a technical budget adjustment to cover that contract cost and the project cost. An RFP was issued for the construction of the paint booth, and the selection was based on both qualifications, 30%, and cost, 70%. Paulson Construction was the top scorer of the 3 contractors. Their bid came in higher than the engineer's estimates, but all 3 of the bids came in higher than the engineer's estimates. It had a lot to do with cost of steel and other things. We worked with Paulson and did some value engineering to get the cost down, and so the amount now of the contract that we would like to sign with them is for $1,305,766. In order to cover the cost of the contract, we need to do a technical budget adjustment and move $429,500 from the capital contingency project to the front runner paint booth project. That would leave a remaining, let's see, $1,570,500 in the capital contingency budget. Is there any questions?
Maybe just a brief one, but remind me the value of, I think I know, there was a value in having us have our own paint booth and ability to refurbish our front runner cars. And I just, I guess, why would you have a paint booth and stuff? I just thought it'd be good to maybe ask. I don't know if somebody can answer that.
Well, I'll start, and if Andrea has anything to add, please jump in, Andrea. Right now, we have to piecemeal paint the parts of the front runner trains as they come in, And we're going through a major overhaul right now, and we'll want to be doing major painting overhauls as well. And it would be very difficult to just piecemeal it together and to send it somewhere else. I'm not even sure how far we'd have to go to somewhere who could paint those cars for us. Andrea, did you have any more insight on that?
No, just basically that they actually pull the car into this paint booth, and so they're able to mask it off and have the appropriate environmental conditions, where they're safe, the air is safe, and they can actually paint the entire train all at one time. And then they can swap out a new car and do another car. And so it's in a contained environment where the fumes don't expand past where they should be and that type of thing.
And these aren't small cars.
No, they're not at all.
You've not been up next to them, so, okay. Questions, though, for Mary or Andrea?
Mary, I just had one question, or Andrea, I'm not sure which, but how in these kind of like difficult procurement times when costs of manufacturing goods are so volatile, how does the contract address any potential changes? I know you value engineered it, but is there how does that work? Is it safe for when we sign this whole entire contract, even though there could be subsequent volatility?
By doing the budget adjustment, we've also included a little bit of volatility in there. With this project in particular, that we have asked Paulson that question, and really the thing is they need to, if they can buy things right now, like the minute, by Friday, if we let them know your contract's good to go, then we've cut that volatility down because they've already ordered them. So most companies don't say, oh, you ordered it 3 months ago, we're going to have, cost has gone up, we're going to raise your cost. They hold their cost, and most of the costs are held for 1 or 2 months. So when we have something like this, where the problem is if we can't get it on the board agenda quick enough so that we lose some of that, but we've also in our discussions made sure that we've accounted for it.
Thank you, that's helpful.
Any other questions? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion on the contract as well as the budget, technical budget adjustment.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the contract as presented to Paulson Construction LLC for the front runner paint booth construction and technical budget adjustment in the amount of $429,500 as presented.
I'll second that.
I have a motion by Beth, seconded by Jeff to approve the contract and to do the technical budget adjustment. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? That motion passes. Thanks, Mary, and thanks, Andrea. Our next item up is a change order for the on-call infrastructure maintenance task order number 5, which is the 7500 South Tracks grade crossing replacement with Stacy and Whitbeck. We welcome Dave Hancock. Good morning, Dave.
Good morning, Chair and trustees. Task order number 5 is part of the on-call infrastructure maintenance contract with Stacy and Whitbeck. And to maintain a state of good repair, the agency needs to replace or rehabilitate 5 to 7 grade crossings per year. This task order is for the replacement of the grade crossing at 7500 South on the Blue Line in Sandy. And this will be the first crossing replacement for 2021. We are asking the board to approve and authorize the executive director to execute a task order with Stacy and Whitbeck in the amount of $217,160, bringing the total contract amount to $1,157,590. This work is scheduled to be performed this weekend, so we're getting an early start on this year on these grade crossings. Are there any questions?
No, it seems pretty straightforward and standard. Dave, any idea, is this how many times this grade crossing's been replaced since the line was constructed, or?
I believe this is the first time that it has been replaced since it's been constructed.
That's amazing, actually, when you consider it's over 20 years old. So
Yeah, they have lasted.
that's great. Any other questions for David? Okay, well, seeing none, I would entertain a motion on the change order.
Chair, I would make the motion for the change order on on-call infrastructure maintenance, task order number 5, which is the 7500 South Tracks grade crossing replacement with Stacy and Whitbeck, Inc.
Second.
I have a motion from Jeff, seconded by Beth, to approve the change order. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. We'll come back to Dave for a change order for on-call system maintenance. Task order number 1, contractor full-time staff support with Rocky Mountain System Services. Dave?
Yeah, thank you, Chair and trustees. I have Jared Scarborough with me. He's our manager of our systems engineering department, and he is going to present on the on-call systems contract as he is the project manager on that contract. Jared, I'll turn the time over to you.
Thanks, Dave, and thanks, Ford, as well. Yeah, so this is the first task in this new systems on-call contract that we have that was finalized earlier this year. This is for the 3 full-time technical experts to help us with basically all things systems for rail systems. We would have the 3 people, which would be a project manager, a project engineer, and then a field engineer. And these 3 full-time experts would be available to us at a moment's notice for any support we may need with our MOW group, with the systems engineering group, with training. They've also, or will also, help with like emergency responses and call-outs. We hope to be able to minimize those as much as possible, but the reality is they do happen. And the ability to have these 3 people available to us at a moment's notice will help us greatly reduce delays and impacts that could occur had we not had these experts available. They'll help us with any communications issues that may come up. Although we're certified with PTC, we actually continue to have perpetually requirements with the FRA to monitor the performance of our system and track any issues that come up and close out each issue as they come up. And so this full-time staff will help augment my staff and the MOW staff to be able to continue to provide these reports and closeouts of the PTC items so that my staff and the MOW staff can focus on projects and other things that are our day-to-day responsibilities as well. So we're asking the board to approve and authorize the executive director to execute this task order with RMSS in the amount of $749,625, as this is the first task on that contract. So that is also the total contract value at this point. These charges on this task would be billed on a monthly basis. Only hours accumulated by those 3 full-time people for this task would be billed to UTA on this contract. So that's generally the scope of work we're looking for: maintenance support, training support, emergency on-call support, and then we're trying to align our group with where UTA is heading and where we're going in the future. And as ridership increases, as maybe even capacity and infrastructure increases, we want to not only utilize this group to reactively respond to things, but proactively look at what are our common causes of delay from a systems perspective, and have them help us look at what are things we can do right now to get ahead of the curve, to continue to minimize the impacts rather than just having to always respond to them reactively. So that's another big thing I'd like to utilize them for as well. Are there any questions on that task or the scope of that task?
One question I had, Jared, and I think you answered it, but I'm not positive, and that is, what if you were paying for 3 full-time people? why wouldn't you go out and just hire the 3 full-time people? Because I'm sure you're not, you know, they have their overhead and those kind of things. Do you get more than really 3 full-time people as part of that deal, or why wouldn't you just have them as employees at some point?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I would actually love to have them on hand. We've hired some really good folks internally. I think some of the best of the best. The rail system is it is complex. There's a lot of moving parts. The programming and modification of our train control software is very difficult, especially for Runner South, has its idiosyncrasies. These team members are a lot of the same ones that helped us to install and design the PTC system and Runner South. So as much as we would like to be able to do that in-house, the level of expertise it requires to do some of these tasks and to troubleshoot and update the software and make modifications that may come our way via efficiency changes, or we do some partner projects with UDOT. Some of those changes, we don't have the capability or the technical expertise in-house to execute some of these tasks. Dave, I don't know if you had anything to add to that.
Yeah, just add that, you know, systems engineers and the systems engineering portion of our system, you know, they're hard to find. These people are hard to find that have this technical expertise. And we're just really happy that we're able to put this contract together. This is something that we came back to the board to last year, that we had a need for a little bit of extra money for some technical experts, subject matter experts, to really help our MOW systems group and systems engineering group with technical aspects of things that we were seeing on the alignment, communications issues and signaling issues that we were having, that we needed help with, and be able to get to the bottom of why we were seeing some of these issues we were seeing.
I mean, don't get me wrong, I realize that you know, if like for today, you really do have to look at this, but I just thinking longer term. You know, generally, if you're having to pay a technical person on an ongoing basis, at some point you'd want to integrate that, it seems like, in your team.
Yeah.
You know, through you know, transition period, but I don't know.
I think, yeah, just, you know, this is in the transit industry. This is probably one of the hottest jobs and most difficult. I mean, I've spent 2 years at a time trying to hire a systems engineer. And typically we end up using consultants. There's a lot of work. There's a lot of updates. There's a lot of demand, which also drives the salaries that get out of line oftentimes to have that expertise and internal. So a lot of people, though, we can transition over time as more people come on and someone is brought in, you know, maybe, you know, and learn our system and want to participate the long term. But these are highly in-demand employees. Would you say, Dave or Jared?
Yeah. And Chair, that is the purpose of these 3 individuals, and the training aspect with our MOW team is that is the plan, is to transition, to get our team the knowledge that we need, so that we become those technical experts, and you know, and we need less consultants and help from the outside as we get that training and knowledge.
Yeah, so I think what you do is exactly, and I think that's what most of in the industry does, is bring in, and things are changing and systems change. The transit system, the signal systems change as well. So to bring in that perspective, and to bring in that team, and then have people who are there working with them day to day, and transferring really that knowledge onto our employees, so that our employees then can take on more of that.
That's helpful. Thank you. Other questions, however, on the change order? Okay. Not seeing any other questions. I would entertain a motion, excuse me, on this change order.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that we approve the change order, the on-call systems maintenance task order number 1 with the Rocky Mountain System Services for full-time staff support.
I'll second that motion.
I have a motion from Beth, seconded by Jeff on the change order. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Thanks, Dave and Jared, and thanks, Carolyn, for those insights. That takes us to change item D, which is a change order for on-call systems maintenance, task order number 2 for the 700 South Tracks OCS auto tensioning, also with Rocky Mountain System Services. Dave?
Thank you, Chair. Jared is going to present this one as well.
Okay.
Thank you, Dave and Chair. Yeah, this will be the second task on that same systems on call contract. 700 South downtown, just before we make that curve to head towards the Half Grand Union. There's the interlocking there. That OCS wire is fixed tension through there, meaning it just terminates to the OCS pole, and it has no ability to move with the temperatures. As it gets colder, it contracts, and in the summer it expands and it elongates the wire. But because that was originally designed to be fixed tension, in the summer when that begins to elongate and sags, it has the ability and has had the interface with the pantograph will get caught in that wire, and then it can damage the train, it can damage our system. Certainly causes delays and costs and property damage. So we've had a design developed already for that last year that utilizes spring tensioners that will be attached to our existing OCS poles, and they'll basically kind of coil up in a circle type configuration. As the temperature gets warmer, those will pull that wire tighter, keeping the tension right where it needs to be, and more importantly, keeping the pantograph from getting tangled in the wire. We looked at a lot of different options for this. We were worried that we would have to do new foundations, maybe some cantilever assemblies, which would get us out of our right-of-way, and then we have utility potential issues and property issues. We feel that this is the best design possible that eliminates the need for new right-of-way, that eliminates the need for new foundations. It can be done in a matter of a few weeks at night, and then there would be a weekend cutover required to do the final install. So we're asking the board to approve this task order with RMSS in the amount of $293,621, which would bring the contract with the previous task we just mentioned to total contract value to $1,043,246. And this is a long lead material item, and the critical time to do this is ideally before summer. And had we had the ability to do it last year, we would have. But with COVID and some other things that pushed this out, and we'd really like to get moving on this as soon as possible to have it in place before the summer is completely over this year, if possible. Are there any questions on that task order?
We're out of curiosity. Is there a way to describe how the tension? I mean, what's the measurement of the tension of those wires? No, I mean,
like 3,000 pounds. Is that what you mean?
Yeah. I just was curious. It's 3,000 pounds then.
Yeah, well, it varies depending on where you're at. It could be 18 to 3,000 up to 6,000 depending on the wire you're on.
Okay.
So each of those are configured specific to the wire run that it will be attached to.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Just was curious.
Sure.
Oh
Jeff,
yeah.
I had a question.
Yeah.
How long will this the coil system that you're going to install? How long will that last?
That's a good question. I'd have to get back from the manufacturer and see what their kind of life expectancy for the product is. Generally, most OCS components have like at least a 20-year lifespan on them. I believe this would be consistent, but I'd probably have to get a little more detail from the manufacturer themselves on that.
And then how many times have we had to have this replaced? I'm just curious.
I'm not sure, David. I don't want to put you on the spot. As far as like how many times we've had the conflict with pantograph, is that?
Yeah, well, this is a yearly occurrence that we have.
Oh, yearly. Wow. Okay.
Slow orders in this area that really delay the track system-wide because every train comes through this point. And so this is a great project and is really going to help operations be able to run delay-free in the summer months because we're fixing this issue. But this has been an issue since the line has been installed, and it's always been a fixed tension area and fixed length. And so we're excited about this project.
It sounds like a good project. Thank you.
So just for clarity, Carlton, just for clarity, every year you deal with this issue and you look at this as a solution that will be a longer term fix. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Oh, that's good. Thank you.
Well, and Dave, it's also good to know that engineers get excited over tension projects. So you're relatively easily pacified there. So that's great, though. It sounds like a great fix and some smart thinking that's gone on. Any other questions? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion on the change order.
Chair, I would make that motion on-call systems maintenance task order number 2, which is 700 South Tracks OCS auto tensioning with Rocky Mountain Systems Services.
Second.
I have a motion from Jeff, seconded by Beth on the change order. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Thanks, Jared, and thanks, Dave, for the detailed explanation. Sure appreciate it.
Thank you.
We'll just note that in our other business that our next meeting will be on April 14th. In our original schedule, there was an April 7th meeting that we have canceled. Would also notice, and I don't know, Jana, does our broadcasting options change with our meeting on the 14th from YouTube to our new Legistar system?
That is the plan, Chair.
Okay. So you may, if you're a regular watcher, you may want to check our agenda, and we're in the process of changing our agenda systems, and it should, in the long run, be much more user-friendly for you as you want to go back and look at something or check things out. With that, we will look forward to April the 14th. With that, I would entertain a motion for adjournment.
Mr. Chair, I move we adjourn. In memory of Doug Oldham.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, and we do so as we adjourn in our memory of our colleague Doug Oldham, and again, our condolences to his family. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? And that will conclude our meeting today. Thank you so much.
Thank you.